My name is Jennifer Wilson. I work as a real estate agent in Worthington, a suburb of Columbus, Ohio, where I'm raising my only daughter, Lily. This autumn has been unusually chilly, and the street trees started changing colors earlier than usual. With Thanksgiving approaching, our quiet residential neighborhood is beginning to show signs of seasonal decorations. Pumpkin ornaments line the front porches, wreaths adorn doors, and warm lights spill from windows as dusk settles in. Our daily life has found a new rhythm since my divorce 2 years ago. Lily, now 8 years old, is a second grader at St. Michael's Private Elementary School. She has a bright and genuine personality that makes her popular among her classmates. I drive her to and from school, and on weekends, we enjoy watching movies together or having picnics in the park. My ex-husband Thomas is a well-known businessman in the area. He's barely involved in childcare, citing work as his reason, and I was able to gain custody of Lily. His family is prominent in the community, and his mother Margaret, in particular, still dotes on Lily. Margaret lost her husband early but has remained actively involved in local charity work, beloved by everyone. Even after Thomas and my divorce, she's been understanding towards me and occasionally helps look after Lily. I maintain a cordial relationship with Thomas's sister Rachel on the surface. She works as a librarian at the local Worthington Library. While she appears to have a gentle personality, sometimes something in her eyes makes me uneasy. We live a middle-class life. Still, I believe I'm able to provide Lily with everything she needs. Early mornings and late nights, balancing work and childcare isn't easy, but seeing Lily's smile makes all the fatigue disappear. Every Sunday, we attend the local Protestant church, making sure to stay connected with our community. On weekday evenings, while driving home from the office, I sometimes reflect on my life as I watch the sunset paint the streetscape. Though our situation might not be ideal, I feel a genuine happiness in the life Lily and I have built together. However, I had no idea that these peaceful days were about to be severely shaken. One Friday, I was excited about my first big success in quite a while. After 3 months of negotiations, I had finally closed the sale of a luxury property in the Worthington district. As I watched my satisfied client sign the contract, I realized how significantly this achievement would impact my sales performance this year. "Excellent work," my boss patted my shoulder with a smile. This deal involved the sale of a historic mansion owned by one of the region's wealthiest individuals. Though negotiations nearly fell through several times, my persistence in mediating finally secured the best possible terms. "Would you share this success story with everyone at next week's sales meeting?" Nodding at his words, I glanced at the photo frame on my desk. Lily's smile seemed to be celebrating today's success. "Now I can keep my promise to take Lily to the movies," I murmured while gripping the steering wheel. Last week, Lily had pointed at a new movie poster, her eyes sparkling as she pleaded, "I want to see it." Between juggling childcare and work, I rarely have time to spend leisurely moments with my daughter. But this week is different. Now that this big deal has closed, I can proudly spend the weekend with my daughter. As I was leaving the office building's parking lot, my colleague Sarah waved at me. We joined the company at the same time, and she's been a close friend who's consistently supported me since my divorce. "Congratulations, Jenny. You're treating me to celebrate this success, right?" I smiled in response to her words while turning on my blinker. The setting sun filtering through the autumn-colored street trees cast a warm light on my windshield. When I get home, I'll first make Lily's favorite hot chocolate, and we'll get excited talking about the movie. With these simple but happy plans in mind, I drove through the quiet residential streets. Turning onto Main Street, colorful maple trees lined both sides. With Thanksgiving approaching, neighboring houses seemed to be already preparing for the holiday season. As I passed under the warmly glowing streetlights, I was mentally organizing next month's schedule. When I parked in front of the house, the pumpkin decorations on the porch cast faint shadows in the twilight. Just as I was reaching for my keys, I noticed an unusual smell. The aroma of pizza wafting from inside the house. But I hadn't ordered any. "I'm home, Lily." Opening the front door, I heard Lily's cheerful voice respond from the living room. "Welcome home, Mom. Look, look." Stepping into the living room, Lily was happily waving at me in front of the dining table. An unfamiliar pizza box lay open on the table, and Lily had already finished one slice. The scent of pepperoni filled the room. "Grandma had it delivered. It's my favorite pepperoni pizza," Lily explained with an innocent smile, but a small sense of unease grew in my heart. Margaret always contacts me when she sends Lily any gifts. Today, there had been no communication at all. "Grandma, you mean Grandma Margaret?" "Yes." The delivery person said, "This is from your grandmother." They were wearing a uniform. But I don't think I've seen them before. While taking out my mobile phone, I tried to maintain my composure. There were indeed no calls or messages from Margaret on the screen. Moving to a spot where Lily couldn't hear, I dialed Margaret's number. "Hello, Jennifer. Is something wrong?" Margaret's voice carried a hint of worry. "I'm sorry for the sudden call. There's a pizza that was just delivered to our house. Did you order it?" "What? I didn't order anything. I haven't sent any pizza. What's going on?" Margaret's response sent chills down my spine. Just then, I heard Lily's voice. "Mom, my stomach hurts. I feel sick." When I turned around, Lily was clutching her stomach in pain. Her face had turned pale, with cold sweat beading on her forehead. "Lily, are you okay? Where does it hurt?" By the time I rushed to her side, Lily's body had started trembling slightly. She complained of nausea, and her complexion was rapidly deteriorating. "Margaret, I'm sorry. Lily's condition. Head to the emergency room right away. I'll meet you there." "Ohio Health, right?" "Yes, Worthington Emergency." After hanging up, I quickly lifted Lily into my arms. Her body was hot, and her lips had taken on a slightly purple tinge. "I'm calling an ambulance." While dialing emergency services with shaking fingers, Lily's breathing was becoming increasingly labored. Ohio Health Worthington Emergency Hospital is less than 10 minutes away by ambulance. But at that moment, those minutes felt like an eternity. Following the dispatcher's calm instructions, I held tightly onto Lily's hand. As the sound of sirens approached, Lily occasionally let out pained moans. The paramedics efficiently began their work. They checked her blood pressure, temperature, and heart rate while assessing her symptoms. In the ambulance, I was allowed to sit beside Lily. In the swaying vehicle, holding my daughter's small hand, all I could do was pray for her safety. Upon arriving at the hospital, a doctor immediately began examining Lily. Dr. Anderson, a female physician, was thoroughly checking Lily's condition. It appears to be food poisoning. Let's run some detailed tests. The time waiting for blood work and other test results felt excruciatingly long. I sat numbly beside Lily's bed as she received intravenous fluids. Jennifer. Margaret rushed into the hospital room 30 minutes later. Her face was etched with deep concern. Though elegantly dressed as always, she had clearly hurried to get there. Is Lily all right? She's stable now. But as I watched Lily receiving her anxiety and anger churned inside me. Who would do this, and why? Most importantly, why did my precious daughter have to be targeted? Have you contacted the police? I shook my head at Margaret's question. I hadn't even had the presence of mind to do that yet. I'll report it. This is clearly a malicious incident. Margaret resolutely took out her mobile phone. Just then, Dr. Anderson returned with the test results. The food poisoning diagnosis is confirmed. We'll begin antibiotic treatment. She'll need to stay overnight for observation. Outside the window, the sun had completely set, with only streetlights quietly glowing. The joy of success and weekend plans I had felt just hours ago now seemed like distant memories. In the sterile hospital room air, we spent a long night praying for things to improve. The next morning, the police investigation began in earnest. Detective Carol Martin from the Worthington Police Department was a police officer in her 40s who carried sharp eyes within her composed demeanor. Dressed in a gray suit, she emanated a confident presence that spoke of years of investigative experience. Soft early morning light filtered through the hospital room window. Though Lily's breathing had stabilized after receiving 4 fluids, it would still take time for her to fully recover. May I check the security camera footage? I nodded at Detective Martin's question. The security camera at the front door had been installed last year at Margaret's suggestion. When I hesitated at the price, Margaret had said, "Lily's safety comes first," and covered half the installation cost. I never imagined we'd realize its value in such a way. The footage is saved. While operating my smartphone, I opened the recording from the day in question. Next to Lily sleeping heavily in the hospital bed, we focused on the footage playing on the small screen. The monitor's light cast a pale blue reflection on the sterile hospital room walls. 4:35 p.m. A figure in what appeared to be a uniform approached the front door carrying a pizza box. In the twilight, their figure was clearly recorded. As we zoomed in to check the face, Detective Martin leaned forward. This is. At that moment, my breath caught. The screen unmistakably showed Rachel's figure. She was recorded approaching with an unnatural gait, wearing what looked like a delivery person's uniform. The collar buttoned up to her neck, an oversized cap. But that characteristic walk was unmistakable. Do you know this person? Yes, she's my ex-husband's sister. But why? Detective Martin continued her questions while taking notes with a slim fountain pen. Rachel's current address, occupation, when we last met. As I answered, various memories surfaced. A few weeks ago, when we happened to meet at the supermarket. I remembered how she had asked about Lily's school life with her usual gentle smile. Her job at the library. That day was a weekday afternoon, she should have been working. Why was she in that outfit at that time? Questions kept emerging. Fragments of memories were gradually forming an unsettling pattern. Detective Martin, seemingly sensing my distress, continued in a gentle tone. We'll conduct the interrogation at the police station. Are there any family members present? Margaret stood up from the corner of the hospital room. Her expression showed deep sadness. Her shoulders were slumped in a way I never would have imagined from her usually dignified presence. Please let me attend as well. Her voice carried a slight tremor. Upon arriving at the police station, Rachel was already waiting in the interrogation room. Under the fluorescent lights, her face looked paler than usual. I had never seen her in a uniform before. Her profile viewed through the glass was different from her usual calm expression, somehow tense. Her hands were tightly clasped on her knees, occasionally gripping with her nails. Where were you at approximately 4:35 p.m. on November 15th? Detective Martin's voice echoed in the quiet interrogation room. At the library. I was working. Rachel's voice trembled slightly. Her gaze wandered, occasionally glancing at us before looking away. The library has security cameras. When we checked, you weren't visible during that time period. At Detective Martin's calm observation, Rachel's expression momentarily crumbled. Her pale cheeks took on a slight flush. I was on break. Absences over 30 minutes are recorded, aren't they? But there's no record for that day. One by one, the contradictions in her alibi became clear. The security camera footage, inconsistencies in work records, and the decisive evidence came from a convenience store's security camera that caught Rachel's car. The footage even captured her changing into the uniform in her car. Her awkward movements changing clothes in the black sedan, it was clearly premeditated behavior. Detective Martin's voice was quiet yet authoritative. Tell us everything. At those words, Rachel's expression completely changed. As if her previous facade had been a lie, intense emotions surfaced in her eyes. The strength drained from her hands gripping her knees, and her shoulders slumped as if in resignation. Yes. I did it. After a moment of silence, Rachel finally spoke. Her voice no longer trembled. Why don't you understand? How much I've suffered. Her voice overflowed with emotions long suppressed. A twisted smile appeared on her face under the fluorescent lights. Thomas should have been mine. Since childhood, we had a special relationship. But then you appeared and took everything away. From the moment you were introduced at that family dinner, I knew. Rachel's confession was a story of twisted obsession and jealousy. She explained how her childhood admiration for her brother had gradually warped over time. Even after the divorce, you got everything. Custody, mother's love, nothing was left for me. In the cold air of the interrogation room, Rachel's confession continued. How she deliberately chose expired pizza. How she stole a uniform from a local pizzeria that was about to dispose of them. How she disarmed Lily's suspicions by saying it was from Grandma. Everything had been meticulously planned. Lily is just 8 years old. My voice shook with emotion. The image of Lily sleeping in the hospital room flashed behind my eyelids. That's right. Your most precious thing. That's why I chose her. I wanted you to feel the same pain I did. Rachel's words froze the air in the interrogation room. What we saw there was no longer the gentle librarian we had known. It was a cold cruelty born from years of twisted emotions. Detective Martin quietly stood up and read Rachel her charges. Assault, interference with business operations by deception, and endangering a minor. The handcuffs clicked with a cold metallic sound, leaving an eerie resonance in the interrogation room. As I was leaving the interrogation room, I heard Rachel's final words. I don't regret anything. This was my chosen revenge. Those words completely shattered our illusion of family. On the drive home, Margaret and I couldn't speak for a long time. The betrayal by a trusted family member left deep wounds in our hearts. 3 months have passed since that incident. Outside the window, soft snow falls quietly. It's the morning of December 24th, Christmas Eve. Mom, look. I put the star on top of the tree. Lily's voice rings through the living room. Standing on a stepladder supported by Margaret, she smiles proudly. My heart warms at the sight of my daughter's smile, now fully recovered. Though she was discharged after a week in the hospital, it took time for Lily to completely recover. But now, there's no trace of that day's suffering in her expression. If anything, her bond with Margaret seems to have grown stronger. Well done. That's my granddaughter. Margaret's voice was filled with deep affection. Recently, she's been coming over often on weekends, sometimes staying overnight. Rachel's trial ended last month. I heard she received a suspended sentence with mandatory counseling. She moved out of her family home and is now living with relatives out of state. Margaret occasionally sighs deeply when thinking about her, but I can sense her strength in trying to move forward. Hey, what are we having for dinner tonight? Lily's eyes sparkle with anticipation at the aroma of turkey wafting from the kitchen. Margaret had offered to cook for Christmas this year. That's a surprise. Margaret answers with a wink. Lily's favorite cranberry sauce is already laid out on the table. We've found a new kind of family. Blood ties alone don't make a family. What's important is the feelings we have for each other, and the trust that allows us to support one another through difficult times. Outside the window, snow was beginning to accumulate. The fireplace fire gently illuminates the room. Watching Margaret and Lily absorbed in Christmas decorating, I felt a genuine happiness. This was the beginning of our new story. That's what I felt on this peaceful winter morning.